The PG Show, where we talk about all things college football. And today it looks a little different. I am not at my house in my normal studio. I am actually dog sitting, but I did just get back from the game earlier, got some grub, took a shower because it was hot and I was sweating, and we stuck it out all the way to the end of the fourth quarter. But I am so excited to finally get home and talk to you guys about this game and just what I thought from what I saw live inside the stadium, and then just kind of what I was hearing from other people around me. So before we get into it, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. Let me know what you guys thought about game one for the Oklahoma Sooners. You can also find me on any of the major podcast platforms, Apple, Spotify, Google. Go ahead and hit the subscribe there. Give me a 5-star rating if I'm that good, if I deserve it. But please at least go ahead and hit the subscribe button over there as well. Let me know that you guys are listening. Hit the subscribe button here on YouTube. We're working on getting to 1,000 subscribers. And when we get there, the OU player content's really just going to start taking off. Okay, OU just wrapped up their game with UTEP, and we have to talk about it and my thoughts, because I do have a couple things that I want to talk about that I saw that could potentially be a problem for OU going further into the season. But let's start with the positive. Let's start with what I thought OU did really good. And the first thing was, in that first quarter, that offense looked explosive. That offense was moving up and down the field at will. It was super fast. And that's something that I love. I am really excited to see that, especially as Lincoln Riley exited. I think even though Jeff Lebby came in and Jeff Lebby has a good offensive scheme, there probably were a lot of questions from a lot of you guys and from myself that thought, okay, like, what are we going to see from a defensive perspective or from an offensive perspective here? Because it was like the same thing when we saw Jalen Hurts come to Oklahoma. We expected a step down. And it wasn't until Spencer Rattler entered the system that we actually saw a step down in terms of just production from the offensive side of the ball. And so I thought we would see something similar this year, but man, that first quarter showed us differently, and I'm just excited. Dillon Gabriel was slinging the ball into tight spaces just like an NFL quarterback would. That was awesome to watch. Eric Gray got over 100 yards, and I believe if I go look at the box score, Eric Gray, yes, 102 yards on 16 carries. We got to see a little bit Marcus Major action, who actually had 2 touchdowns. We got to see Gavin Freeman bust one off for 46 yards and a touchdown, and then Dillon Gabriel also ran one in. So the Oklahoma rushing and that running back room looks really deep. We did get to see a little bit of Tawee Walker, probably not as much as I would have wanted, but I was excited to see him as well. He got 2 carries for 10 yards. Guys, this offense, I think, as the year progresses, is going to look really good. And I think the big thing to note here is Dillon Gabriel didn't throw an interception. Now, there was that one that did get called back, but it was due to a simple PI call, right? That's how they intercepted the ball. So I'm not really going to count that one. I probably would have liked Dillon Gabriel not to make that throw, but at the end of the day, OU got the job done. Dillon Gabriel went 15 to 23. 233 yards, 2 touchdowns, average of 10.1 yards, and a QBR of 82.4. So not too shabby, as remember, guys, Dillon Gabriel is coming back from an injury. So we should expect to see Dillon Gabriel through the season really pick it up and really start to look like a quarterback that OU maybe is used to seeing. It is going to get weird, though, watching a lefty in the stadium. I was talking to the guy that sits next to me this year. For those of you who don't know, I actually moved my seats this year from section 36 over to 35. I'm all the way up in row 72 on section 35. So if you guys are ever at the games, please come by and say hi. But I was talking to the guy next to me, and he was like, oh, I haven't seen the lefty since Josh Heupel. And I'm like, I don't think I've ever seen a lefty at the University of Oklahoma. For those of you who don't know, I'm only 25 years old. So the Josh Heupel era, 1997, is when I was born. I'm not going to remember anything about Josh Heupel. So it was a little weird, take a little bit of getting used to. but that's just how it is. And so another thing I really want to talk about is something that I have stressed a lot to OU fans. If anything this season, if the only thing we get better on is tackling, you should be excited and happy. And man, this team got so much better with the tackling. So much better. They were wrapping guys up. They were bringing guys down. And yeah, they maybe gave up some passes and some yards on the pass that you didn't want them to give up. But there was somebody always right there to wrap them up and bring them down to the ground. And so that was a huge plus to me. That defense, even though it looked like maybe at some points they were a little, confused on what they were doing, on the whole, that defense looked pretty dang good. It's looked completely different from what we've seen in years past. Now, it is just UTEP. So we do need to take a step back, and we do need to remind ourselves that UTEP and Kent State are not Baylor and Oklahoma State, right? And there's a pretty large step down from Baylor and Oklahoma State to Ohio State and Alabama. So OU potentially still has a lot of work. And we're going to talk about that, and we're going to get into that, but not right now. The other thing is, I talked about the defense as a whole, but I want to brag on this defensive line. This defensive line is better than expected. I could not believe the improvement on the defensive line. They allowed a total of 28 rushing yards, I believe is what it was. Man, that completely shocked me. I did not expect to see that from the defensive line this week. I thought maybe they'd give up less than 100 yards, but I mean, for a good chunk of the game, you looked up at the scoreboard and UTEP was in the negatives for a good chunk of that game. Another piece that I really want to talk about, and actually it's a player, there's two players I want to talk about. First one is Braden Willis. Braden Willis showed out in this game. And I think that is going to be a lot of what we should expect to come from Braden in that passing game. He caught 2 touchdown passes, so 3 receptions for 40 yards. He had a 13.3 average on those catches. But one thing that I really liked about Braden Willis was his blocking. Multiple times did you see Braden Willis come out after the ball was snapped and run out to the left or the right and just go completely truck a dude and block. I mean, it was tremendous. I love to see it. And that's something that maybe we needed this year more than, especially after losing Jeremiah Hall. And so I think that's a huge plus. Additionally, we got to talk about my man, Drake Stoops, right? Jeff Lebby, you have to get Drake Stoops the ball a little more. Drake Stoops got 2 receptions for 25 yards. Man, Drake's gonna be that guy where, hey, you need 3 or 4 yards, you're designing a play for Drake Stoops. He's gonna go out there and catch it. He should be your slot receiver. I understand what they were trying to do with Marvin Mims, trying to be a little bit more explosive there, but man, Drake Stoops just seems to be so, I don't like the right words, efficient, but he just seems to be in the right place at the right time. It seems like he has good hands, and he seems like he's just your go-to guy when you need a play. And it's 3rd and 3, or you're in the goal line. And so I'll be curious to see just what kind of role Drake Stoops takes throughout the season. I'm glad that he got some more playing time. I was afraid that with Marvin Mims moving to the slot on that depth chart, that maybe Drake wasn't going to get as many touches. Additionally, something else I think OU fans are going to have to get used to is it looks like they're maybe going to run the ball a little more than what we've seen in the past. Looks like this offense is going to be lean heavily on the run. Because Dylan Gabriel only got 23 attempts. I would like to see Dylan Gabriel start getting at least 30, maybe 35 attempts a game. But hey, I'm not a coach. I'm not on the sideline. So they know something that I don't. All right. Let's go ahead and let's jump into. Actually, you know what? We're going to change this up a little bit. I've got a bone to pick with some of you Sooner fans. Well, some of you so-called Oklahoma Sooner fans. I get it. The stadium's hot. September games kind of suck, especially early September games, because unless it's a night game, it's hot. It's hard to sit there. And for you older folks, I'm not necessarily getting onto you. I'm getting onto the younger crowd. The younger crowd that I know can drink a lot of water, hydrate themselves, and be able to stay in the stadium. Now, again, I'm not going to get super onto you guys for leaving the stadium like in the third quarter because it's hot and, just safety. What I am going to get onto the Sooner fans for is just how lifeless the stadium was this week. It was lifeless. It was not loud. And I know some of you might disagree with me because at the beginning, when we had the hype videos and everything else, and we got to see Toby Keith, which I'm glad that we got to see Toby Keith. Continued prayers to him and hoping that he continues to get better as he is recovering from that cancer. I can't remember what type it is, but I did hear he's dealing with cancer. And but it was nice to see him there today and go to the locker room and get the guys. And so, man, like, we got to get a little bit more energetic. When you go into the SEC schools, those fans are rowdy. Those fans are nuts. And the fact that it was like quiet on the defensive side of the ball. It was quiet. I've never been to Kansas, but I would expect the rowdiness that we had today to be a Kansas level type of rowdiness. Where they're going to hold what? Maybe what does their stadium hold? Somebody put it down in the comments. What is it? 40,000? Maybe less? That's what I expect from them. Oklahoma fans, we have to do better. Okay, if you leave in the third quarter because it's hot, that's fine. We can address that later. The energy in the stadium has to get better. These players need us to bring energy and be loud. And here's why. My game of the week, UTSA versus Houston, which, by the way, UTSA gave Houston everything they could have gotten and more. They lost by 2 points. And you heard it multiple times from the announcers. This UTSA crowd is rowdy. There's only 40,000 people in here. 8,000 of those people are Houston fans. Yet, you don't hear the same thing from Oklahoma. We love to throw around the video from 2008 of Texas Tech. Woo! We beat Texas Tech 42-7. Well, okay, we were winning 42-7 at half. Woo! Yeah. You suck. Get better. Bring more energy. Brent Venables and his team need it. And I guarantee you, if we put a truth serum in Brent Venables and some of those players today, they would tell you that we suck as fans because that stadium was not rowdy enough. How is it that a spring game can be rowdier than a regular season game? Well, there's no way that next year, when Georgia comes to Norman, Oklahoma to play us, that we're going to win that game with the type of fan interaction that we had. No way. There's no way we're going to go to the SEC and play Alabama and play Auburn and LSU and Texas A&M with the energy that we have and win. No way. We have to be louder. We have to be a disruption to the opposing offense so that those players can't hear us. You heard it multiple times at the UTSA game. The commentator said, man, when I was on the field and you're on that line of scrimmage and you're in opposing territory, you can't hear anything when the players are going nuts or when the crowd's going nuts. That's what we need to be. We are an elite level program. We are one of few Jordan brands in the NCAA. We need to take pride in our program. We need to take pride in our players, pride in our coaches, and be rowdy. But that's going to be it. That's going to be all I'm going to be doing and getting on to you guys. Let's go ahead and talk some more Oklahoma football. First thing that kind of stuck out to me was the offensive line. It kind of looked like they struggled a little bit more than I expected. I do think that as the season starts to move on, as we get through Kent State and Nebraska, you'll kind of see that offensive line put it together a little bit more. But, man, every time Dylan Gabriel went down, I was like, oh, like, just don't want him to get hurt again, right? Additionally, actually, I'm going to save this one for later. I'm going to save this one for last. The passing game, I get it. They threw for 288 yards. Gavin Hardison is a dude. Shout out to Chris with the Horns Down podcast, who's been talking about this UTEP quarterback. And not going to lie, they actually have some decent receivers. They've played pretty well, and they've been returning. Ooh, looks like the Utah-Florida game just went final. Florida just won 29-26. We'll have to talk about that one on Monday. But, yeah, like, the passing game, I don't know if it is necessarily a huge concern because I almost wonder how much Brent Venables actually wanted to throw at UTEP in terms of a defensive scheme, because you are playing UTEP at Kent State, and I mean, who knows what Nebraska's will be when we go play them, but how much of your defense and your playbook do you really want to show everybody, right? So, and then also, you guys got to remember, Brent Venables' defense is extremely complicated in terms of scheming. So, I don't expect everybody to pick up on everything that Brent Venables is trying to teach them within the first year and right away, right? This team will get a lot better as they progress through the season. I expect the secondary to get a million times better. And I'm going to point out a positive on the secondary because this really made me excited. Hardison would throw the ball. And let's say he threw it to a Watt, right? Because that was his main target. Or, well, that was rushing. Let's say he threw it to Flores. He got 7 receptions. You would see a guy like Bowman or Lawrence or somebody immediately, as soon as they caught the ball, wrap them up and bring them down. They weren't really getting away and getting yards after the catch. And so I think that has to be a huge plus because it's probably the thing that's killed OU the most over the past couple of years. Yeah, like, our defensive lines have been pretty good. And I say pretty good. Like, they've been okay. They've been able to go out there and at least make stops. It's the secondary that's really killed us. And it's the yards after the catch. And at least they were able to stop that. Last thing I really want to talk about is the penalties. We had too many penalties. There's just no excuse for it. And I'm not necessarily going to like harp on this one too much with the team because I would expect that to get better as we go throughout the season and the team gets a little bit more disciplined. We had 7 penalties for 59 yards. And a lot of those came in the second quarter and the first quarter when UTEP put up 10 points. So I'm not necessarily going to get like too worried about it, but it was potentially an area for concern. Potentially. We'll see with Kent State next week and Nebraska if the penalties fix themselves. This could just be like a, hey, first game jitters type of thing. People were just excited to go play. Last thing I want to talk about is time of possession. So I talked about at the beginning how quick this offense looked, which is awesome. Unfortunately, that's going to put us in the position that Lincoln Riley put us in a lot, which is time of possession is going to be low compared to the other team, which puts a lot more time on your defense. Now, I don't know how I don't necessarily know how the defense is going to work in terms of substitutions and how often it's going to happen to keep guys fresh. But I feel like we need to potentially run the ball a little bit more or throw a little bit more shorter passes so that we can get that time of possession up a little bit. UTEP had it today for 38 minutes and 33 seconds, and we only had it for 21 minutes and 27 seconds. I think that could potentially cause problems later in the season when you're playing a team like Kansas State or Baylor or somebody that wants to control the ball. So we'll see. I'm sure that's going to be something that the coaches talk about, and I'm sure they'll adjust to it. Like I said, they probably didn't even open up the full playbook today. Actually, there's no probably. They didn't open up the full playbook today on the offensive side and the defensive side of the ball. So they probably weren't really that worried about it, right? They probably just wanted to see what kind of fight are we going to get out of the players today, and are they going to run through a brick wall for us? Which I'm not going to lie. If you're not playing hard in Brent Venables' defense, then it's going to show. Because there was a play, and I don't remember the player. I think he had number 2 on the defense. But I think Reggie Grimes had just got a sack. And Brent Venables literally comes on the field and starts yelling at this kid because he did something wrong. Like, he wasn't in the right place or he wasn't paying attention. And it's like, if you're not putting in 110% for Brent Venables on this defense, it's going to show. And you're going to get your rear end chewed out for it. And it showed today. And I appreciate that. Tough love by the coaches. Creates a more disciplined team. There are a couple players I really want to talk about and just kind of give them a heap of praise today. First one is Reggie Grimes. Man, like, what more do I have to say about this guy? I think he had a total of 3 sacks. I mean, he was applying pressure left and right. Yeah, he had a total of 3 sacks. That man, 2.5 sacks. That man was all over the place applying pressure on the quarterback. Additionally, David Agwebu had a sack, and then our Mason Thomas had half of a sack. Ethan Downs, my boy, Ethan Downs had a sack. Let's go. But on the defense, I got to give it up to Reggie Grimes. Reggie Grimes killed it. Additionally, Billy Bowman, the guy who has gotten lots of praise from Brent Venables, a total of 9 tackles, 7 total solo tackles, just did great. And then Danny Stutzman, right behind Billy Bowman with 6 solos and 9 total. And then David Agwebu right behind him with 7 total and 3 solos and 1 sack. 1 tackle for loss. Guys, we got some stars on this defense, and they're going to show out. Personally, I'm upset we didn't get to see anything from Jonah Laululu really that much. I don't even think he played. No, he played 1. He got 1 tackle. I kind of wish we could have seen a little bit more from him. Gentry Williams with the interception at the end of the game. I was excited for that one. I was excited to see Marvin Mims returning punts. But on the offensive side of the ball, I've got to give it over to 2 players. Eric Gray, 16 carries, 102 yards, did not have a touchdown, but he showed us that he can be a first and second and third down back. Now, I would hope that Eric Gray is mainly just a first and second down back, and Marcus Major or somebody else can come in and be that third or fourth down back if we need them. But Eric Gray can definitely step into that role if we need it. Additionally, I have to give it up to Braden Willis because that man played hard as a captain. He really stepped up. He blocked when it was needed. He caught the ball when it was needed. He scored 2 touchdowns on the offense from Dylan Gabriel, and I'm going to have to give my last one up to Braden Willis. So, on that note, that is my reaction. That is what I thought of the game today. I do have to give a shout out to somebody in the stadium. I don't know who you are. I probably should have caught your name. But I thought it was really cool. For those of you who don't know, I started this podcast back in January, but I really started to ramp up in June. And I am so thankful to be able to have you guys listen to me and, interact with me on YouTube or Twitter or wherever it is. And just know that people are actually out there listening to me. Today, I walk in with my mom on the north side. We were just checking out all the new food restaurants that have been placed in. And as we're walking towards the south end zone, some guy going up to the suites, getting in the elevator, stops me and says, "Hey, I love your YouTube channel." Now, mind you guys, I only have 512 subscribers, or at least that's what it was earlier when I looked. Like, that meant a lot to me. So if you guys see me out wherever, or if you guys want to come say hi to me at the stadium, my section is 35, row 72, seats 9 and 10. Come say hi. Let me know what you guys think of the podcast in person. Love to meet you guys. But shout out to that guy. You really made my day. I talked about it in the group with Ty Hayes and Indy Sooner, JP, Chris, and a couple other guys. It really made my day, guys. And so if you see me out in public, let me know what you guys think of the podcast. It means a lot to me. But on that note, I am going to let you guys go. Until next week, expect another reaction. It'll be pretty late Saturday night. It'll probably go live Sunday morning, maybe, or it might go live Saturday night. I'll be at the game. I got season tickets. So, yeah, just be looking out for a video next week for the reaction to the Sooners game. Until next time.